Pterodactyl here, and we're about to start the second phase of the fuel experiment. And the second phase being, we're going to let the engine sit for 6 months now under the suggestions of you grass rats out there in the comment section. So instead of starting them every month like we did before and every couple months, now we're going to start them up and we're going to let them sit for 6 months. So today is November 13th that we're doing this. Now, you watching this video are saying, it's not November 13th, it's November whatever when we post the video. But on the day we're shooting it is November 13th. So there's been a few changes. And one of the changes is we're adding 4 new fuel products to try. Because you grass rats were telling us about the Marvel Mystery Oil. And a few of you grass rats told us about this product we never heard of before, this PRI-G. And then there's Lucas, and then Walbro, the carburetor makers, they have their own fuel treatment. And then we're going to use the existing 7 treatments we used in the very first test. The K100, the Sten Shield, the Ethanol Shield, the Tron, the Seafoam, the Gas Guardian, and the Stay-Built 360. But before we start all the engines and mix up all the fuel, I want to go over carburetors. So, this is one of the carburetors that's off the engines that we used in the experiment. Now, these engines ran for 19 months. And one of the things that Elkskins pointed out is, if you know how carburetors work, on this particular carburetor, the fuel is picked up from the float bowl through this hole, and then it draws it through the main jet, which is way down in there. So, our thinking is, the reason they ran so long with all that gel in there is because all that gel accumulated in the bottom of the float bowl. So it took quite a while for it to build up to start to block this hole, which in turn blocked the jet, which kept the engine from running. Another thing we did is there was corrosion in all the float bowls on these carburetors when we took them apart. The only one that didn't have any corrosion was the VP engine. And they wanted that engine, so we gave them the engine. And they wanted a float bowl that had corrosion in it, so we gave them a float bowl from one of the other engines. So one of these engines has a new float bowl on it. The other 11 engines, we sandblasted the float bowl so it'd be nice and clean. So at the end of 6 months, or at the end of this experiment, whenever it ends, it may end in 10 months. When we drop the bowls, there won't be corrosion in there from the previous experiment. So all the bowls have been cleaned, and that's how they look. So we're still using 12 engines, but since VP had won the experiment, that engine is gone. They wanted that engine, so now we're down to 11. And we're not going to use 93 octane because we proved in the last experiment that myth about, higher octane fuel has a longer shelf life, that's not true. We proved that because that engine failed before the 87 octane. So we took out the 93 octane, and one of these is going to take the place of it. And so no VP. So one of these is going to take the place of that. And then we had the 2 engines that we introduced later in the experiment that we put on the pressure washer frames. And that's where these 2 additives are going to be on the ones that were in there. So we're going to use one engine with straight 87 octane again, no fuel additive, and the other 11 is going to have one of these in it. We're going to let them sit from November 13th, today, till May 13th. And then we're going to try to start them on May 13th and see if they start. So One of the engines, since that VP wanted their engine, we replaced it with another engine, a Tecumseh engine. And I'm going to tell you why we chose that engine, because again, this was under suggestion from Elkskins. So I just showed you how this carburetor pulls up the fuel through this hole. On that Tecumseh engine, this bowl nut is the main jet. So on this carburetor, which is real similar to this carburetor, which is on a Briggs, real popular Briggs engine on push mowers and lawn mowers, it's the same thing. This bowl nut is the main jet. Whereas in this carburetor, the main jet is way up in there, which you have to take out with a screwdriver. So these tend to clog up faster. This design of carburetor on these older ones tends to clog up faster than this, because anything that settles in the bottom of the bowl is going to settle in this bowl nut / main jet. See that hole in the bottom? That's where it draws up the fuel. This hole in the bottom of the nut is basically this hole that's on the Subaru engines that we're using in the fuel experiment. And the same on this carburetor. That hole in the bottom of the bowl nut is where the fuel gets drawn up and then gets sucked through the main jet, which is a little hole that's in this bowl nut. So that was a good suggestion from Elkskins to use one of those engines that has this carburetor design to see if it'll plug up faster. And the fuel treatment we decided to use for that Tecumseh engine is going to be this Marvel Mystery Oil that you all clamor about and say how great it is. We're going to use that on that engine. And then we got our alcohol tester. So when we go to the gas station to fill up those 12 gas cans, we're going to see what amount of ethanol is in the fuel with the tester. And then we're going to take out the appropriate amount. Now, like on the K100, if you notice, they suggest a ½ ounce per gallon, but for longer storage, an ounce. So we're going to put an ounce of this time. Last time we did a ½ ounce. We're going to do an ounce. And then some of these are going to be slightly overdosed, very slightly, only because of the amount of product they want in the fuel is kind of hard to accurately measure. I think, let me see, I got to put my glasses on. This one says an ounce per 2.5 gallons of fuel in the tank. So we're going to get 1 gallon of gas for this, and we're going to put a ½ ounce. So that's going to slightly overdose it a little bit. Just to give you an idea. Same with this PRI-G. This stuff is really, really highly concentrated. They suggest an ounce of this to 16 gallons. So when I broke it down, we're going to put 5 cc's per 2 gallons. So we're going to fill that can with 2 gallons of gas. And then what about this Marvel Mystery Oil? A ½ to an ounce per gallon. We're going to go with the higher level of 1 ounce per gallon. But that's their recommendations. A ½ ounce to 1 ounce per gallon. We're going to go with the higher ounce. So that's how we're gonna figure the amount of treatment we're going to put in there. Same with this one. They suggest for 5 gallons, 1 ounce for 5 gallons. So when we broke it down, 1.2 teaspoons. So we're just, if you figure out how much 1.2 of a teaspoon is, it's going to be about, we're going to put about 5 cc's in there. I figured that out. 1 teaspoon is about 4.92892 cc's. 1 teaspoon is that many cc's, so we're just going to round it up to 5 cc's. So in the case of this one, 1.2 teaspoons, 5 cc's is 1 teaspoon, so we'll probably go with 6 cc's. Just overdose it just slightly, and I'm sure it's not going to make that much of a difference. So that's how we're going to mix the fuel additives to the amount of gasoline that we're going to use in this experiment. We're going to fill the tanks all the way to the top. We're going to start them, we're going to run them, let them run for a little while, and then we're going to let them sit for 6 months, and then we're going to go back and see if they start. Now all we got to do is go get that dinosaur juice. Oh, one other thing. A lot of y'all, I know what you're saying. You're saying, Taryl, you left out one thing. You left out the non-ethanol fuel, the non-ethanol pump fuel. Yeah, well, we're not going to use the non-ethanol pump fuel because the VP represented the non-ethanol pump fuel in the last experiment. And the reason we did that is that canned fuel is readily available at any hardware store or any box store, home improvement store. They sell that stuff everywhere. Everybody's making it now. It's readily available. We know non-ethanol pump fuel works. We know this. That was proven in the last experiment. If you're using non-ethanol pump fuel, if you're a non-ethanol pump fuel man, if you're one of them and that works, that's great. That's what you're supposed to do. This experiment is fuel additives that claim to safeguard against ethanol. That's what this is all about. Which ones are going to safeguard against it? And as we proved over the last experiment, 19 months, none of them work. So that's why there's no non-ethanol pump fuel man in this one. Because we've already gone through that. We've already crossed that bridge. That stuff works. We know it works. If you're using that and that works, that's great. You're doing what you're supposed to do. This is what represents a majority of people that aren't doing the right thing. They're buying this snake oil, pouring it in their fuel, and hoping and thinking it's going to work. Now, this is what I think is going to happen. I think I'm going to go out there in 6 months and they're all going to start because they haven't sat long enough. And that's all based on the last experiment, which they sat for 19 months. But we'll see. I might be wrong, but that's what I think. And if they start after 6 months, then we're going to let them sit another 4 months. So they'll be sitting for 10 months, and then we'll see if they'll start again. But this is what we're going to do this time. We're going to let them sit 6 months and see which ones start. So I know some of you are probably thinking, well, why are you going to let them sit 6 months and then you're going to let them sit 10 months? Because a lot of y'all, if you think about it, use your little peanut up here. Some equipment that you own, you don't use it as often. Now, this part of the country that we live in, like a snow blower, sometimes we only use that snow blower for a couple of months out of the year, 2 months. So that means it sits for 10 months before it gets used again. Other parts of the country, you guys use your snow equipment more. And then other parts of the country, they don't even have snow equipment. But that piece of equipment in this part of the country we live in sometimes sits for 10 months. Sometimes we don't even get any snow to use it. Sometimes it'll sit for 2 years. Pressure washers. Some people only use them a couple times a year, depending on where you live. Rototillers. Leaf vacs. I had a leaf vac come in the other day. Sat for 10 months. The guy said he was starting it periodically, and he goes, now it won't start. Which again, heard all that before. That's why I started this experiment. I've been starting it every once in a while, now it won't start. Yeah, because now the fuel degraded to the point where it has no umph left in it, now it won't start. So that's why we're going to let them sit for 6 and then maybe 10. So chew on that, you grass rats. Now these gas cans all got a screen in them. And they've all been emptied and cleaned out. All right, got all the gas cans filled. Got the receipt. Now we're going to test and see if there's 10% ethanol in the fuel. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is an alcohol tester. And it works very simply. It works the same way as those guys you see that are trying to remove the ethanol from the fuel and then they add octane booster to it like Mick did from Mick's mowers. This is just on a small scale. So you put water up to that line and then we're going to take our 87 octane, we're going to fill it to that line, and then you vigorously shake it, then you let it sit for 5 minutes, and then it should read how much alcohol is in the fuel. The cap on. Sure it's nice and tight. Now we gotta let it sit for about 5 minutes. Alright, so there it is. There's our 10% ethanol. Now if you notice, there's kind of like a film on top. And you know what that is, don't you? That's that gel that we saw in all those carburetors. That's that ethanol gel. Because I got to thinking about that after I watched, you know, those guys remove the ethanol from the fuel, and I'd see that slime on there, and I thought, you know what, that's that gel, that's that jelly we seen in there. So now we just got to start adding the additives. Let's see, one of these sides is ounces, this is ounces. Now we just got to start adding the additives to the gasoline. And in the last experiment, a lot of controversy over the K100. Y'all like drama, don't you? Y'all love that drama. Small engine drama. Love it. 1 ounce. And we'll shake it up. Now I just got to do this 10 more times. Mix it up good. All right, so that one's done. All right, here we are, back at the bench, at it again. And here it is, November 13th, like I said. 40 degrees out. And again, this is being sponsored by the people at Aaron's who supplied the engines, and Pro Parts who have supplied the gas cans that we're using.
Oh, look, back at it again, I see. What are you doing now? Another experiment?
Yeah, you were probably hoping to get this spot back, weren't you?
Yeah, would have been nice to get this crap out of here.
Well, you can thank the grass rats out there. They want me to let these sit for 6 months now.
Oh, great.
Possibly 10.
All right, whatever. I guess I got no choice.
Yeah, you got no choice. This is my shop. You're just a guest.
All right, whatever. Whoa.
That's,
Whoa.
kind of frozen rain we're getting,
Whoa.
because it is November.
Oh, oh.
What, are you scared?
Never heard that before. Freaky.
Yeah, frozen rain. It's like little styrofoam balls falling.
Real nice.
We're in that weird season where leaves are still flowing and yet we're trying to fix tractors and...
Well, hope us, man, got that tractor insured, because it's coming down like golf balls out there. That thing's gone.
He's gonna restore that anyway. All right, let's get on with the experiment here. 87 octane is back in its original spot. Switch on, choke out. couldn't hear if this one started. It's loud in here. I shut this one off because that one was surging a little bit and I wanted to make sure it cleared up. So we're not going to show the jars again because we only did that to show the rate of evaporation in the first experiment and any kind of color change. Now we just want to see if these things are going to start after 6 months. Now we got 2 more to start.
Oh, yeah.
We got the Walbro fuel treatment. Not starting.
Did you put the gas in it?
Yeah, I put gas in it. Gas in it. I know what I did.
You hooked up the choke rod backwards.
Right, because Slippers did all the carburetor rebuilds on all the other ones, and I did this one, and I put the choke lever in the wrong spot. So when I pulled the choke out, it was in, and when it was in, it was out. Knucklehead me. So I gotta fix that. What'd I do with that wrench? All right, I got the choke hooked up right this time. In is off, out is on. here's that Tecumseh engine that we've got the Marble Mystery Oil in. That's got that carburetor I told you, where the bowl nut is the main jet, and it also lets the fuel through. So they're saying 3 times. So this would be the only one I'd be concerned about not starting in 6 months. Only because of that crappy carburetor design. But it does run. Doesn't run real good or smooth, but it does run. Let's see if it runs 6 months from now. Alright, well now we're in the second phase, grass rats. Got what you wanted. We're gonna let them sit for 6 months. The only thing you didn't get was your nothing on pump fuel man. So subscribe to this YouTube channel. Taryl Fixes All, that's me. A great singer. I should be on them singing shows. Follow me and Ronnie on Facebook and Instagram. Go to our web store. Got all kinds of stuff we sell. Buy some Taryl Apparel. We got all kinds of other products. HP 350. We got Never Seas. We got all kinds of other stuff. Some tools and stuff. And as always, there's your dinner. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. Fuel experiments back, baby. Round 2.
Fuel experiments back. See you in 6 months.
Yeah, that's a long time from now. Well, if I got like long hair and a beard, that'd be crazy.